Hello, I am Xarkun. This is World of Warships Legends. On the screen here, you see my build for a level 14 Louis Violet. I am using him as commander on the new Tier 6 tech tree French destroyer, the Vauquelin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's my best attempt. Anyway, keep in mind that as we get into the gameplay here on this ship, that this build is influencing the stats. Now, we've got a game on Sea of Fortune, relatively new map added in this most recent update, and it's a domination mode game. So, let's begin by talking, of course, about the most obvious stat on the Vauquelin. That is its hit points. It's got 18,100 hit points, which, across my builds, makes it the second highest hit points at the tier, behind the Tier 6 German Moss. It's got 5 139mm guns, which is the largest gun caliber for a destroyer at the tier. The Moss doesn't get the 150s like the Geta and the Z-23 do, so it's got smaller guns. Russian guns on the Minsk, not quite as big as the 139s on the Vauquelin here. They range out to 11.8 kilometers on my build with the epic booster of battle propensity flag, and that's a pretty comparable range to other builds that I use the sidestep commander skill on. The Minsk, though, ultimately outranges this ship by about 0.2 kilometers. I can get that thing to fire out to 12 kilometers. Now the guns do a maximum of 2,000 HE shell damage with a 9% chance to start fire. That actually gives them the highest HE alpha strike at the tier and the highest chance to start a fire by like about 1%. Then the AP shells do a maximum of 2,600 damage, which is the second best maximum damage value at the tier behind the Moss. The torpedoes, which we just launched at that Budioni, the ship has 9 torpedoes after the torpedo upgrade is installed. They are held in 3 triple launchers. There are 2 on each wing of the ship and 1 in the center that can fire off either side of the ship, which gives it an effective torpedo broadside of 6 torpedoes. You can launch 6 of them and then swing the ship around and launch 3 off of the other side from one of the wing launchers. Now, the torpedoes reload in 87 seconds, which is about on par with the Moss. It's one of the destroyers with faster cycling torpedoes at this tier, and you can see we just swung around there and launched the other 3 torpedoes off of the other side of the ship. Don't think they're going to hit this Budioni, but, you know, we're launching them anyway. Now, if these torpedoes were to hit the Budioni, they could do a maximum damage of 18,400, which, much like the Quepart at Tier 5, makes this the destroyer at its tier with the highest maximum torpedo damage, 18,400. That's more than the Minsk, which is the second highest at like 17,000. And of course, the torpedoes on the Minsk aren't nearly as usable as these, because these range out to, again, just like the Tier 5 French destroyer, 7 kilometers. So, they're more usable than the torpedoes you would find on the Minsk, but they're pretty much the second shortest range, I believe, at the tier. You do have a window to fire them from stealth, but it's not a very big window. The torpedoes themselves travel at 65 knots in the water when fully upgraded. And I don't think I'm using a torpedo modification skill on my Violet build. They are also pretty dang stealthy, 1.2 kilometer detectability by sea. Now, these French destroyers are known as speed demon type destroyers, but this one in particular has a top speed of 39.3 knots on my build here, and that also includes the epic booster of battle propensity flag. And that 39.3 knots really kind of puts it on par with other destroyers at the tier, and it gets absolutely smoked by the Minsk, which I have running at a 47.4 knot top speed with the Epic Booster of Battle Propensity flag. So honestly, it's not all that fast. It can get above 40 knots with the speed boost active, and of course you get 2 of those, but it's not going to be shattering any speed records. It's not going to get anywhere close to what the Minsk or maybe even the Leningrad. I didn't look at the stats of any of the premium destroyers at this tier because there's just too many, but I would suspect the Leningrad is also faster than this destroyer. It's got a 670 meter turning circle radius, which is one of the largest turning circles at the tier, and a 4.7 second rudder shift time, which is somewhat long, but I find it manageable. And then finally, 5.7 kilometer detectability by sea, which is surprisingly stealthy. So, what do I think of the ship? Well, I can tell you what. It is quite nice when you can land these torpedoes on target. Fired some at that Gneisenau in the gap there, and I believe they are going to hit with 3 of them hit, actually, with some pretty catastrophic results to that ship. Okay, 4. He's dead. So, there you go. That's quite nice. These torpedoes, like on the Guépard, also hit very hard. But primarily, I think this thing is a gunboat, and it does best when acting like a gunboat at range. For example, you don't want to be as close as I am here necessarily to a Colorado, but this Colorado, of course, is not interested in shooting me, and he's going to die as I strike him with another torpedo. In any case, this is a gunboat without a smokescreen. So what that means is you need to be at range so that you can dodge return salvos. And for the most part, if it's a battleship shooting at you, it's pretty easy to dodge their salvos. If it's a cruiser, it becomes a little bit harder, particularly if it is a Russian cruiser with their insane magic ballistics, railgun speed, etc. Those things aren't going to have a hard time hitting you, or a super hard time hitting you anyway, even at their max range. And, this destroyer is reasonably stealthy, but the lack of a smoke screen doesn't give you a get-out-of-jail-free card if you should get detected. So when you're playing it, and probably with the rest of the other French destroyers, you might want to keep this in mind too. When you're playing it, you don't maybe necessarily want to immediately enter a capture circle, just in case an enemy destroyer happens to enter the same capture circle, spots you, and, of course, maybe he has support from the other Reds, and they all start ganging up on you and shooting you. Not a fun experience. You can't disengage by the use of the smoke screen. You have to get out of your maximum sea detectability range and also not be firing your guns so as to incur the gun firing penalty. Nevertheless, once the game is developed a little bit and you're sure that you're not going to get spotted by an enemy destroyer should you enter a capture circle, this ship is fine for taking caps like most other destroyers. Like I said, it's reasonably stealthy. And I suppose if you do meet an enemy destroyer inside of a cap circle that you're trying to take, you do have access to the single main battery reload booster, which increases this ship's damage output by an insane amount for a relatively short duration of 15 seconds. I've found, as I've played, unfortunately we're not going to get to see the reload booster in action here, but I've found, as I've been playing, that this thing, and it seems like the Guépard at Tier 5, can pretty much outgun any other destroyer that they might come across with the use of the reload booster. And you know what? Maybe I was wrong. We've got another enemy Vauquelin out there. And I think we're probably going to take a few shots at him once we put this island between us and the other enemy ship out there, that cruiser, I think. Now, as soon as we shoot, he disappears, reappears as he begins to return fire. You can see that my aim's a little suspect, but I popped the reload booster. Maybe not the best time to do so, considering we kind of waste it as we go behind the island. But if you get into a knife fight with an enemy destroyer, you're at pretty close range, and you use that reload booster, you are probably going to be able to take him out by the time the duration of the consumable has expired. This, I probably really can't even overstate how fast these guns shoot with that reload booster, and that 2,000 maximum HE shell damage is brutal. You can get salvos against enemy destroyers that are like 3-4K, take them down to nothing before they even know what hit them. And a lot of people with these destroyers being so new are probably not going to be expecting that, especially the American destroyers with their rapid firing guns already. They're probably going to think they can take you, but if you're at full health, they're at full health, you got this reload booster, you do more damage than them, you probably shoot about as fast, if not faster than them. So you can give them a run for their money. The 139 caliber, I think, also gives these shells an easier time penetrating lightly armored cruisers like a Nuremberg, which may not be like super lightly armored, but we were getting some damage on him. Gonna switch focus now to the enemy Vauquelin, and where I'm at right now, about 8 kilometers or more, I would say, is the sort of sweet spot for firing these guns. When you're at this kind of range, it does make it a lot harder for the enemy to hit you, and while this ship isn't as insanely fast as something like the Minsk, I assume the Tier 7 Le Fantasque will be a little bit faster and maybe live up to the reputation of the French destroyers as being speedy. This one kind of doesn't. But with all that being said, I really enjoy the ship, and if you like these kind of quick gunboat destroyers, then I assume you're going to like it too, and you might want to check out the French line when it comes out. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already done that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.